Everybody.
Hey,
Good morning. Good morning.
All right, well, go ahead and do your class and just hit me back.
Who was that?
That was my partner in South Carolina with my Christian radio station.
Okay. Sound like the voice of God.
He, he basically is when he's talking about God and on the Christian radio station. You need a voice like that to command the attention of the people.
Damn right. I'm impressed.
what radio station is that?
That is CG93radio.com. We made a radio station for the young Christian children so that they wouldn't have to listen to the regular hip hop, and it has messages in the music, and we have guest speakers and different shows. So we build that one. Then we have a regular secular hip hop station here in Eastern Carolina called ENC 96 Radio, where we play all types of music and do interviews with artists. So one is for Christian and wholesome, and the other one is for everybody else. So we kind of try to keep a balance. If we do
So
one,
if I'm in the car, what for the Christian one? What station would I listen to? 93 or what would
yeah,
it be?
yeah, well, it's an internet radio station. So all you do is put up the CG93radio.com, and it will take you to if you have Apple Play
Yeah.
or the Google Play, it'll play through your speaker. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Cool.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. That's good to know, Branson. You may want to post that in the Facebook group, some of that information so people can find it, or yeah, I never do anything like that. I must admit, I don't know how to use it. So,
Okay, I will do that.
yeah, I think, and that goes for anybody. If you have any news or information or upcoming sales, anything like that you have, I would encourage you to put it in the Facebook group. I think people read it. I'm not sure. Okay, well, here today we're gonna continue with EQ for entrepreneurs and part 2. I am going to repeat the managing your fears, which was the last one we saw, because I think it's particularly good. So let me see if I can get this going here. Okay. And okay.
Let's talk about fear, because fear is a reality. When you're an entrepreneur, fear is everywhere. I don't believe a great company can be built on fear, but I do believe that a great company, in fact, most great companies, maybe every great company, is built by people that felt fear and worked through it. So what do we feel fear about? So Harvard Business Review actually did a study where they identified 7 specific and repeated buckets of fear that are felt by entrepreneurs. Okay, so the basic one is financial insecurity. It's really risky doing a startup, right? You're not building your 401k. The second one is running out of money, right? The most common fear of entrepreneurs, we're not gonna outlast our cash on hand. We're not gonna be able to make it. We've got 7 weeks, we're running towards a wall. The third one is imposter syndrome. It's the idea that I've tricked people into giving me money. They think I'm someone that I'm not, and I actually can't do it. And I'm gonna get found out. The next one is that the idea is no good. I've convinced people that this really great idea, is gonna change the world, and I'm not sure I 100% believe it right now. And then there's the shame or embarrassment factor. What is it gonna be like when I have to, tell everyone the company blew up and that I failed? I can't even stomach that feeling of imagining what that's gonna be like. Then there's the team. I didn't hire the right people. They're not going to be able to do it. I don't have the right people around me to execute. And finally, the opportunity cost, that big corporate job that you didn't take where you would have been building your 401k, and I'm never going to get it back, and I got myself off the path, and see, now I'm spinning. I am getting upset just talking about this stuff because I have been there, and I was that founder, and I had all of this. It's real, and it's no fun.
Well, I have no idea what happened there, so hang on. I don't know. Okay. Okay, well, let me try stopping the share and starting it again. Seem to have had a technical glitch here. Sorry about that. All right, well, I don't know what's going on here, but we'll give it one more try.
Let's talk about fear, because fear is a reality. When you're in specific and repeated buckets of fear that are felt by entrepreneurs. Okay, so the basic one is financial insecurity. It's really risky doing a startup, right? You're not building your 401k. The second one is running out of money, right? The most common fear of entrepreneurs, we're not gonna outlast our cash on hand. You know, we're not gonna be able to make it. We've got 7 weeks, we're running towards a wall. The third one is imposter syndrome. It's the idea that I've tricked people into giving me money. They think I'm someone that I'm not, and I actually can't do it. And I'm gonna get found out. The next one is that the idea is no good. I've convinced people that this really great idea, you know, is gonna change the world, and I'm not sure I 100% believe it right now. And then there's the shame or embarrassment factor. You know, what is it gonna be like when I have to, you know, tell everyone the company blew up and that I failed? You know, I can't even stomach that feeling of imagining what that's gonna be like. Then there's the team. You know, I didn't hire the right people. They're not going to be able to do it. I don't have the right people around me to execute. And finally, the opportunity cost, that big corporate job that you didn't take where you would have been building your 401k, and I'm never going to get it back, and I got myself off the path, and see, now I'm spinning. Like, I am getting upset just talking about this stuff because I have been there, and, you know, I was that founder, and I mean, I had all of this. You know, it's real, and it's no fun. But here's the thing, fear is not all bad. Right? I don't want to say that all fear is bad. Fear can be a great driver, right? If you're saying, I got to work hard, I need to figure out my sales channels before I run out of money, or you're going, I got to hit my goal this week because that's what I said I was going to do, like that can be really, really motivating. It can drive progress and learning. But here's the thing, it's incredibly damaging when fear becomes physical. When you experience fear as a physical sensation, it stops you from being able to be effective. You're tense. You know, your heart rate goes up, like your breathing increases, like your blood vessels constrict, right? Your mental focus, you know, becomes insanely sharp. So this is the classic fight or flight response, you know, and that is driven by your amygdala. Your brain is going, what do I need to do to stay safe? So how do you think that is going to affect your ability to make good decisions? So the fact is you cannot build a great team or a company or even have a good day when you're feeling like that. So when you become aware that you're in that feeling, you're having those physical fear sensations, just stop, just slow everything down. Don't make any decisions. You know, you got to address that, you know, back to sort of the idea of being in the red, right? If you've got that level of fear, you're in the red. Go back to your presence tools, go for a walk, get outside, do something physical. You can talk to your team. I personally find that when I say how I'm feeling, it like cuts it in half at least, if not more, right? It's a little bit like, it's not that the fear isn't real. The fear is real and it's rational, but it also reminds me a little bit of like the monster under the bed, you know, and like when mom and dad comes in and like looks under the bed and the monster's not there, like the kid feels better, right? So it's a little bit like that. When you share it, it kind of, fear hates the light of day, you know, so if you're feeling that way, you share it with someone else, it's gonna help you lessen it. If there's no one that you feel like you can really talk to about it, which sometimes happens to CEOs because you don't want to say to your team that you feel afraid because you feel like you need to build confidence. You can always also, you know, by the way, I would encourage you to say it to them anyway, because you're going to be, they're not going to be freaked out. Your team's going to be glad that you shared with them. So if you are a CEO and you are worried about showing your fear and vulnerability to your team, like think about it. If you decide to do it, you're going to get a lot of value out of it. But you can also write it down. You know, sometimes just writing things down sucks the power out of them. And, you know, coach yourself. Just ask yourself a simple question. What's the one thing that matters right now? And that can sort of help you get back on track. The point is not to stop feeling fear or to imagine that you're ever going to get to a point that you're not going to feel it, because you will not. By starting a company or, you know, deciding you're going to be an entrepreneur, you've put yourself in a place where you're going to feel more fear probably than even the average person. The point is to recognize when it shifts from working for you to working against you, and then to manage it. So I love to say, like, feel the fear and do it anyway. The most powerful leaders are those who acknowledge and embrace their fear and then turn it into an asset. Okay, so this is like my favorite section. We're going to talk about flexible thinking. So you decided to work on this new thing and you had a plan. It was probably like an amazing plan. But as Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. The one thing we know for sure about your plan is that it is wrong. Your plan is wrong, your financial projections are wrong. Whether things turn out great for your company or blows up, it's not going to be what you thought. The fact is, what you know about your business is a tiny fraction of everything that there is to know. So if you know this much about your industry and your business and your competitors and your customers and your company, there's another 95% out there that you don't know. If everything was known, somebody would have already done what you're doing right now. So you made your plan with only 5% of the available information. Of course your plan is wrong. And that does not mean it is a bad plan or that you are not smart. The number one thing that highly intelligent people have in common is that they're wrong a lot. Jeff Bezos said that. So to be an entrepreneur, you have to get great at being wrong. You can call it growth mindset, you can call it learning mindset, but today we're calling it flexible thinking. So what are the elements of flexible thinking? So there's this cliche, strong opinions loosely held. People like to make fun of this on Twitter, but it's a cliche for a reason, and that's because it's really useful. So strong opinions means that you have a point of view and you're moving in a direction, right? You have to do that. If you're not moving in a direction and you haven't made a commitment, you're circling the drain. Loosely held means you're willing to abandon your strong opinions in the face of evidence to the contrary. You are taking a hypothesis-driven approach. You have beliefs about your business, you're moving in a direction, you test your beliefs, you talk to customers, you get data. And if the data shows your hypothesis was wrong, you don't go looking for better data. You say thank you, and you change your plan and you go test the next thing. This involves a total detachment from needing to be right. As an entrepreneur, you have to stand in the mirror practicing saying, I was wrong, I was wrong, I was wrong, I was wrong, over and over and over and over again until it's just as comfortable for you as saying hello. The core skill early in your company is learning. You got to also be comfortable in a state of just not knowing, which, by the way, I hate that, right? I'm a J, like I want to make a decision, like I just want to get there, I want to know. I hate not knowing. But that's really the definition of being a founder, is just being comfortable with the unknown. And then what is going to get you through this, and the key to success, is a commitment to asking continually better questions. The questions that you're trying to answer determine what you're going to be working on, and that is going to determine how quickly you're going to make progress in your business. So what are good questions? Good questions are sometimes called powerful questions because they generate thinking as opposed to generating a simple answer. They can't be answered yes or no, and they may have many different possible answers. A powerful question invites creative thinking and questioning of assumptions. So you might be sitting with your team and saying, who thinks we should start charging our beta customers? That's a question that you could ask. It's not a very powerful question because it's just asking for a yes or no, and it's not prompting a discussion. A better question on that topic would be, what might happen if we start charging our customers? So now imagine the conversation you're going to have if you ask that second question. It's going to put you into a conversation that's going to invite creative thinking. Powerful questions are universal. So you can just have this toolkit of questions and you can just bring them out with you. They apply to lots of situations. When you get really good at flexible thinking, these questions will become second nature to you. Like what's working, right? I love to ask like positive questions rather than negative questions. When you focus on what's not working, it takes your brain into a negative place. But if you ask what's working, one thing to say is what's working and how can we do more of it, right? And that takes you into a positive generative place. Another one that I love to ask is what's at stake here? Because when you name the stakes, behind a decision, it can tell you, how essential is this? And if you're worrying about something where the stakes actually aren't that big, asking what's at stake here can cause you to let that question go and focus somewhere else. So just like we looked at the profile of the person who isn't self-aware and we thought about like how bad it would be to work for that person or with that person, here's another frame on that, which is thinking about being in a fixed thinking mindset or a judgmental mindset versus a flexible thinking mindset. And I want to again, just point out that these are states of being. They're not kind of absolutes. So we all spend time over here in fixed and we all spend time over here in flexible. So fixed people are feedback avoiders. They've got their story. So you may have been in a meeting or seen someone in a meeting when they're pitching or they're presenting. And they go into it like a fight. What they're trying to do is convince you that their point of view is right. So if someone asks a question, the purpose of answering the question is to knock down the assumptions, right? Whereas if you go into a meeting with a different kind of flexible attitude and someone asks you a question, where you can go is curiosity. Like, oh, what a great question. I hadn't thought about that before. Let me respond and kind of engage with you on the question that you've just asked. It's just a completely different approach. Where do you think fear puts you? Fear puts you over there. Ego, needing to be right, puts you over there. Fatigue, being triggered, puts you over there, right? So we all get over there and we need to work to get back over here. And how do you think it affects the rest of your team? It is not surprising that flexible thinkers are much more effective leaders. Flexible thinkers build loyalty, build trust, they're able to show humility, and they engender cooperation and a greater taking of risk by everyone on their team because they create a safe space for that to happen. So we're never going to be there 100%, but the more time we can spend in flexible thinking than fixed thinking, the better everything is going to be. So let's talk about feedback. Who loves to get feedback? I love that. A lot of people that love to get feedback. Unfortunately, feedback has picked a pretty bad rap. If you're getting feedback, a lot of people think it's because you did something wrong. You're broken and I have to fix you by giving you some feedback that's going to make you better. So in the context of being an entrepreneur and actually just in the context of life, we need to flip this on its head. Feedback is a positive. Feedback is learning. Feedback is growth. So when you're getting feedback, you don't have to agree with everything that's being said. But flexible thinkers, like we just saw, are open to feedback and look for the learning opportunity in it. So, one of the reasons why we don't love feedback is because it feels like evaluation. But actually, evaluation is only one of the three kinds of feedback. And it might be actually the least important, especially in this context. So there are three kinds of feedback, and they're appreciation, evaluation, and then coaching. So let's talk about appreciation first. Appreciation is feedback, right? And you should just hand it out. Just give it out like candy. In fact, give it out more than candy. It's better for you than candy. So, when people are doing things around you, that are helpful, notice them, right? Just show people that you notice them and care. I'm not talking about the culture of giving everyone a trophy. I'm just talking about the culture of we're all working really hard. Let's take a minute and just thank each other and acknowledge, right? That feels really good. It's not evaluative. It's just saying thank you. You should also be doing evaluation on a regular basis with your team. People should have a defined job description and goals that they need to meet. And you're going to want to check in every once in a while, 3 months or 6 months against those goals and kind of track and see how people are doing. But what I'm talking about now is the kind of feedback that sort of happens on a daily basis that's just meant for growth. It's not evaluative and it's not pure appreciation. It's coaching and growth feedback. So how do you become great at getting and giving feedback? So One of the ways is you ask for it. Right? The best kind of feedback is the kind of feedback that you asked for. What did I do well in that meeting that we just got out of? Like, what didn't go so well? Ask someone for feedback right in the moment, and then you'll be able to incorporate it right away. But make sure you're ready. So if you're feeling triggered or you're feeling a little upset or off, not a great time to get feedback. When you're getting feedback, practice active listening. So you're not going to argue, you're not going to speak. Don't question the content, question for understanding. So remember that it's hard to give feedback. So like have some empathy for the person who you've asked for the feedback, because that's a difficult place for them to be. And remember also, this is an exchange. So it's not like you've asked me for feedback, I'm telling and you're listening. We're having a conversation. Then you might check for understanding. So what I'm hearing you say is that you didn't think that I handled the market sizing question well, that you thought that my answer sounded defensive, right? You want to check and make sure that what the other person said is the same as what you heard. Once you're pretty sure you're clear on what the feedback was, say thank you, accept it, and go away. You can decide later what you're going to do about it and how you're going to address it. And it may take a while for it to sink in. And then on the flip side, when you're giving feedback, before you give it, make sure the person that you're going to give it to actually wants it. I noticed something in there I'd like to share with you. Is this a good time for us to talk about that? Right? And when you're giving someone feedback, you don't want to, you want to share your observations as opposed to your judgment, right? So you want to really stay with, this is what I saw, this is what I observed, this is what I noticed. It's up to the person getting the feedback to make the interpretation. You don't want the feedback to come across as, you should be more like this, you should be more like that. You just want to share what you observed and let them learn from it. So if you've got trouble with feedback, practice. Like, I think it's great to practice on things that are not very loaded. Ask for feedback on, how your presentation skills were, or how your meeting agenda was, or something that's kind of not very deep and personal. If there's certain people you don't want to get feedback from because they just trigger you, that is totally fine. If there are certain topics that are off the table, that is also totally fine. You should work to expand on it. Like, again, back to that whole idea of like expanding the boxes and reducing your blind spot. Like, the more feedback you get, the smaller your blind spot's going to get. Some people like to have mantras. Like, I know someone who actually repeats in his head before he gets feedback, feedback is growth, feedback is growth, feedback is growth, so that he can kind of like calm himself down so that he can hear what's being said. Whatever is your trick for managing it, just look for what's true, the 10% that's true. And if you don't like the rest, you don't have to take it. The truth is that high-performing entrepreneurs, teams, and cultures are all feedback seekers. So especially if you're leading a team, the first step is for you to model asking for feedback and then also responding to feedback in a positive and a thankful way. We're going to talk about coaching. So like, we used to think that this was a coach, right? When we thought of the word coach, we thought about sports. And now we think that this is a coach. Like, a coach is Wendy Rhodes in Billions, like designed to get the top performance out of the traders. But we're not talking about either of those kind of coaches today. Today, we're talking about growth coaching. So like, what is coaching exactly? Coaching is focused on questions and focused on the future. It is definitely not therapy. Okay, we're not going to be doing therapy with the people that we work with or even our family members. Therapy is backward looking and helps shed light on problems and patterns and what the causes may have been in the past. It's also not consulting, which is about evaluating problems and recommending solutions. And it's not really mentoring. Mentoring is about, someone who has more experience, like sharing their experience, to help someone who's less experienced. By sharing wisdom. So coaching is future-focused and question-based. So if you're a manager, you're leading a team at a startup, you definitely need to spend some time over here, but you want to spend as much time as possible over here, because that is how you're going to help your team get on a steep growth curve so that the company can grow faster. The more effective your team comes at solving problems by themselves, as opposed to going to you for the solution, the better you're all going to be. if you're an entrepreneur, you get very used to, when you're a solo entrepreneur, kind of doing everything yourselves and having all the answers. And it's really, really hard to, when you have a team, not to just treat them as an extension of yourself that's going to enable you to be more efficient by taking things off your to-do list and putting it on theirs. That's not going to get the best kind of mileage and results out of your team. And frankly, it's not going to make them feel very happy and fulfilled. So if you can get out of that mindset and have them own their own workflow and their own decision making and empower them by being a coach as opposed to an instructor and a list giver and an order giver, your team's going to be so much more happy. The other thing is, like, we all need to grow. Everyone wants to grow. And research shows that, like, sustainable growth on a personal level has to be internally generated. So if you want to be an effective coach for your team, you have to kind of unlearn that skill of just telling people what to do and, get into a position where you can really lean back and let them find solutions. So coaching is a relationship between two people, any two people, in which the coach supports the coachee to make a meaningful change. It's future looking, it's aspirational, and most importantly, it is owned and directed by the person who is receiving the coaching. Here's a quick methodology that anyone can use to coach someone else on a specific issue. We're just going to call this spot coaching, because this could just be a 10-minute conversation. So who can you coach? Anyone. You can coach your child, you can coach your parent, you can coach your team members, you can coach your employees, you can coach anyone who asks, and exactly 0 people that don't ask you, right? So if the person you want to coach who you think needs coaching doesn't buy into it, non-starter. So what's a coachable issue? So like anything for this purpose, sort of anything where personal growth and work kind of intersect. So this could be career development, it could be time management, it could be stress, work relationships, leadership style. It doesn't have to be like a big thing to be a coachable issue. Like a great coachable issue that comes up all the time is like, I'm constantly late to meetings. What can I do about that? Or, I want to get to inbox 0 is a coachable issue. So anything can be the way into a coachable issue. So you can have a coachable conversation in like 10 minutes. Like this could be 7 questions. So a great starting point is what's on your mind. Then I love to ask the question, and what else? Because usually the first thing someone says isn't actually the issue. You can keep digging by saying, what's the real challenge for you? So it's kind of like you're going level deeper and a level deeper and a level deeper. Asking what you want, like this might feel obvious, but sometimes like by asking this question, you can help people discover what they really want, which they might not even be aware of. So they might be looking at a problem from the outside and not really know where they're even coming from until they hear you ask that question. If you're saying yes to this, what are you saying no to? This is helping people understand their choices and how they value different things. So you're not telling them what choice to make. You are helping them uncover the unconscious decisions when they're choosing one thing over another. And then the final question is great because you're asking for feedback. When you ask someone what was most useful to you, you're saying, what did I do that helped you? Like, help me be better at doing this in the future. So, we all feel pressure to get stuff done and to have the answer. So it's like really tempting to jump in with advice and solutions or like share your own experience. If you really want to coach someone, don't do that, okay? I've done this so many times. I've made this mistake, right? I'll come in because I'm like, oh yeah, I get that. I've been there, and you want to like share and connect. You'll see the person's eyes, it's like the curtains came down, right? Because now you're not talking about them and helping them do the work. You're sharing about yourself. You'll be just amazed at how much more powerful an experience this is if you can stay out of sharing your own experience and just really lean back instead of leaning forward. Coaching is not just a process like we just went through. It's also just a way of being. There's actually a great book called The Coaching Mindset, which talks about this, and it's about kind of bringing a coaching perspective to everything that you do. So the essence of being a coach starts with presence, right? It all comes back to presence. So like literally just being there fully present and really listening. Then, having an empathic stance. Like, do you hold everyone that you work with and the person that you're speaking with in unconditional positive regard? Are you really listening? Are you listening to either fix, solve, or critique? Emotional engagement, like, is your level of emotional engagement appropriate? Like, if somebody tells you something that is deeply upsetting, you know, you should be connecting with what they're feeling, right? You're not detached, you're engaged. Boundary awareness, so understanding like what is theirs to fix versus yours to fix, right? And really kind of drawing a clear boundary so that you're not solving someone else's problem. And finally, like the courage to challenge. When someone says something that doesn't ring true or where you feel like they're not being honest with themselves, having the courage to call time out and say, that doesn't sound quite right, can be really, really powerful. Sometimes people need that. They need you to challenge them. So if there's one thing to take away from this idea of coaching, it's moving away from fix, tell, solve. And you need to spend some time there, right? We're all trying to move fast, but the more you can stay and ask, listen, reflect, like the better everything is going to be for you and your team. And when we kind of go up back to the level of sort of overall emotional intelligence, you know, your job as an entrepreneur and as a leader is not to have answers. Your job is to have questions. And you know, your legacy, it might not be creating the next unicorn company. Like for most of us, like that's not going to happen. But what will definitely happen is that you are going to have an impact on everyone you work with and on everyone around you. And so developing your EQ will help ensure that that impact is a positive one. Thank you.
Okay. I know that many of you are a team of one, so you may have to split your personality and talk to one of yourselves from your other self. You know, it's hard to do, but if you succeed at that, we'll make a video of you doing it, and we'll get Techstars to add how to coach yourself. I think that would probably be a big hit. I'd love to hear reaction or feedback on what this woman is talking about. I will say that the idea of sharing with people how you do something it is automatic for almost all of us. We just tend to do it, particularly with someone who we're trying to have help us. You know, Grant may point out to this that the truth of this is, you know, nothing more boring than the boss sharing, you know, how they carried 50 pounds of ice up 10 flights of stairs backwards when they walked to school in the snowstorm, uphill both ways. You know, the idea of leaning back and listening doesn't come naturally to me, and probably not to many of you. So I thought that was pretty good. Anybody want to opine? Dawn, you look ready.
Well, I like the part about the feedback because, you know, that can only make us better. And I've been reaching out for a lot of feedback lately. So, and sometimes it's not always what you want to hear, but sometimes it's just helping you get to the right place. So I think that part was really important. And it's hard. When you're by yourself, it is really hard.
Well, my only editorial comment to you on that is just remember what you're paying for the advice. If you're not paying anything, you have to take that into consideration as well. So I always say that to people. It's just one of my things I do. Anyone else?
I like the thing about the coaching of coach those who ask and not those who don't. I have a similar thing when I was deployed with the Army to Bosnia. One of the units I was stationed with had these little reminders posted throughout the work areas of who else needed to know to break down the information silos. When I came here, I tried to apply that because I ran across a lot of information that would be of interest to others. I had to add a caveat to it and wants to know, because I found a lot of people didn't really want to know any more than what they already knew about the customers they were working with.
Yeah.
But also, I've got a 4-hour planning meeting this afternoon where we're discussing strategy and how we're going to attain certain goals, shared values, and I'm apprehensive, and I'm trying to remember that the hard thing is not saying doing a lot of the things they said about not saying I and my experience and trying to ask questions, because I don't really know exactly where we're going to go with this.
Yeah, I think the first thing you should say is, I vote that this meeting be less than 1 hour so we can spend the other 3 hours actually doing what we need to do to help. It's funny, this just jumped in my mind. I haven't thought this all the way through, but if you think about movies, for example, and for some reason the movie Sergeant York has come up in my head, and think how much more effective it is having Alvin York tell his story versus the commentator, the officer, the general who's going to give him the award or whatever. The whole thing is really this guy talking real plain, about turkeys and turkey calls and all that. This is really what this woman is saying. If you really think about it, is it isn't about you or I. It's really making the point, particularly from the point of view of the person who needs to understand it. So I think that goes into storytelling and the power of that. So just thought about that. That's a device a lot of movie makers make, like when they show going back in time into a memory, and the memory tells the story versus a commentator or someone reading words. So just kind of a thought. Tammy, what do you think over there in the crop box farm? All right.
Yeah, I appreciate the way that she's encouraging us to coach folks. And I have seen, we do have one or two helpers here all the time. And I do see the people who want that kind of help, and then those who just don't. So, yeah, I like to watching her advice.
Yeah, I knew you had a team that you work with, Tammy. That's why I was calling on you. Anyone else want to comment before we move on to a couple other little items? Okay. Well, this is just kind of a strange thing that happened to me yesterday, and it's something that so we talked last week about hijacking the news, the idea that you somehow leverage what's being talked about in the media in general, particularly if it's a big topic and getting a lot of attention. And this one may be too weird, and I apologize in advance, but it just really struck me. So yesterday I watched a little bit of the Apple, whatever it's called, the Apple conference. They had a live streaming of their event in California yesterday, announcing a whole bunch of new products. And I don't know if you've ever watched any of those, but I find it really interesting, not only for the content, but I find it very interesting how they do it. Some of the techniques they use, I find really educational and helpful to how they make points and how they emphasize things. But the thing that really struck me more than anything else, in the opening part, the CEO, Tim Cook, made this statement. He said, we welcome, so this is the Apple Developers Conference is primarily what it was. And he starts off by saying, we welcome the 34 million Apple developers that are now working on the App Store and other things for Apple. So think about that for 1 second. That is 10% of the US population. That's 34 million people are developing for Apple in one form or another. The other little side note is, in order to be considered an Apple developer, you have to pay $99 a year to their Apple developer program. So that's 34 million times $99 that they make just for this club or whatever you want to have it. So what's interesting to me about that, since it's such a large number, wouldn't it be interesting to have a sale for Apple developers? Where your product, and I don't know exactly how you go about that, if you ask them for their Apple ID, or I don't know, maybe it doesn't even matter. But it just struck me as that is such a gigantic segment of the population that it would be interesting to make some kind of product offer or some kind of combination where you offer a deal for Apple developers. And I would make a press release and I would send that to Apple's corporate public relations, because I think that would probably be a first. I've never seen an ad for, let's say, Mrs. Ruth's Jams for an Apple developer. But you could, I guess, also offer people that are Google app developers. You know, I don't know how many of them they are, probably the same number or very similar. So that's just an example of hijacking the news. If you look through the news yesterday and today, there's a tremendous amount of publicity about this event. People get very excited. Ruth, what were you going to say?
Well, I kind of think it makes sense. I bet you that crowd likes PBJs.
You know they do. And you could even say, you know, Apple developers' favorite jam. You know, who's going to argue with you? Not me. I'm an Apple developer. I love your jam, Ruth. So you can say you took a survey.
Well, there we go.
Yeah, I pay that. I don't know why I pay $99, but I do. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I missed that, Ruth.
I like that idea. Thanks, Dennis.
Yeah. Anyway, I was just stunned at the size of that market, and I've never heard that ever before. That the numbers just blew my mind. 10% of the U.S. population, and to be fair, I'm sure those Apple developers are worldwide. They're not just in the U.S. But you could do some cool things with a press release. With you know, there are any number of ways that could be put together. The other thing that I ran across in my weird tasks that I do occasionally, I ran across a very interesting site that might be interesting for when you do creative for your ad campaigns or emails, and it's called Raw Pixel, RAW Pixel, and it's mostly free stuff, stock images, photos, and all. It also has some paid and premium. I just found it to have some of the really coolest things that I've seen in that whole idea of stock. And I know there's a lot of them, but this particular one really caught my eye. There was a lot of really almost like you custom ordered some of this stuff. It wasn't generic, or not as generic as most that you see. So that's just something to keep in mind. And you know, if it's a royalty free, or particularly if it's labeled public domain, you're free to use that however you like. You don't have to ask anybody's permission. Just look for words like I think there's one called common license or something like that. But look for those kinds of terms for graphics, and they have a lot of graphics as well as photos, a lot of backgrounds, a lot of different things that I just haven't seen before. The other one, and this is weird, this will go into the arena of weird, but the New York Public Library, believe it or not, New York Public Library open access. If you just type that into Google, you will get an unbelievable repository of graphics and photos and just an amazing amount of stuff. And almost all of it is royalty free and in the public domain. Like one of the things they have, which is just my thing, but they have the complete Audubon's book of birds in America. And it's every single picture that Audubon drew of birds, which if you know that, you know some of them are really unbelievable. They're all free to use. In that particular example, but that's just one of the things that's in there. New York Public Library, public access, and I'll stick that on the Facebook group. So that's just some stuff to think about for your marketing, your email, your social media posting. You really can do things to stand out, and it doesn't have to just be, you know, stupid blinking lights or whatever. I hate all that stuff, but that seems to be popular as well. Also, a lot of these sites have video that you can use parts of, you can clip, add it to your stuff. So it's just something to keep in mind. All right. So that's about it for me today. Does anybody have anything they want to talk about? anything happening with your business that you want us to know about, or Dawn?
Can we go off subject?
Absolutely.
So here's a question, and I know, Dennis, you've been helping me a lot with the website. I had a conversation with somebody yesterday, and I just kind of wanted to get the group's opinion. So if I do the spices, somebody mentioned to me yesterday, because, you know, my spices, if I'm a concentrate a lot on my spices, it's not really high ticket items. And they said, why don't you work on curating gift boxes around a culinary experience too? So like, there's certain things I like to use when I'm cooking with the spices, you know, just create some gift boxes too that are pretty straightforward. It would include, you know, a dish towel, the wooden spoon might have my logo on it, or savory spoon, you know, apron, the choppers that use different things that I would use in the kitchen with the spices. And then even create like other gift boxes that would include the cheese straws and some of the other snack items. What is the thought on that? They said, you know, you might want to consider doing like a culinary experience, so that it's not, they could buy a la carte, but they could also have gift boxes that would be something that I could have put together.
If I can interject, I think that would be a great thing. And the greatest way to move that would be doing a live stream and using those products and spices, showing the people how to use it, and then putting it together in a gift box. And with the different spices, we'll have different combinations and different utensils that you use with the different lives. And then you maybe have 4 different ones, and then you can just sell them from those videos. If that sounds.
That's kind of what I was thinking too. I never thought about making it like a culinary experience when they get to the website. Like, yes, they can get that stuff, but also, you know, as I progress and do the videos and stuff, make it such that I'm showing them what I like to use and build the brand that way too.
And if you do it limited, like for some reason on the internet now, when they see it's kind of limited supply of it, they really jump on it. So if you make it seasonal or limited time, I think that will help also.
Okay.
You could do a subscription box.
I thought about that too. I actually, I followed somebody that did subscriptions for a long time, and I just couldn't wrap my mind around it for my sugared spoon piece. But, you know, it would be something more feasible if I did the gift boxes and different things, because you're curating different boxes. So I have thought about that.
With the spices. So every month or every 6 weeks, ever how often you send out a new subscription box, they have the spices. And then you would already have the content that we look at, the videos, or you would point them in the direction of where to see the videos or the recipes you include in the box. So all that is an ad, you know, in your box for whomever needs the spices, because people who don't know how to cook, like we need it all. We need the recipe, the spices, the video. We need it all at the door.
I work with
Go
a lady.
Go ahead, Branson. I'm sorry.
I work with a lady out of South Carolina, and that's what we do with her. She does Gullah spices, and she does stuff like original cheese grits and eggs. So she shows you how to pick like the shrimp. I have a guy that goes around. He follows her into the market. She picks out the shrimp. She shows how she gets the cheese, because she doesn't just use like regular cheese. She uses a special type of cheese. She talks about how she gets it, and that it comes from a goat, and how it goes back to the 1800s, how they make this grits, cheese, and eggs. And then she has these spices that go along with it, the herbs. So when you buy it, you get this whole bundle. And then the kicker is she has a great big cookbook. I don't know if you remember as a kid, it was a show called Gullah Gullah Island. Her grandmother did that show. She's the granddaughter, so she is now using that to get, because they have a restaurant, and when COVID shut down, they're sitting all this spices and all this stuff. So we came up with a plan, and so we started doing the live videos to show all the cuisines that they made at the restaurant, so you could cook them at home and then we did the gift boxes to send out.
Y'all already started on your-
So, doing it with the live, showing the people how to cook, because a lot of young people don't know how to cook. Let's just be real. They
Yeah.
don't. So you have to show them. And then, especially like with her now, she's also now getting ready to go overseas to try to find some pots and pans that she can label as their own to bring back, because even the people are asking, hey, where are you getting these pans from? Why are you cooking in this? And why are you cooking? Because it's all the questions. And so those are also things that can go. Your spices is one thing, but like with anything, it's kind of like going in the food line. You go in for one thing, but there's something on that shelf that you really don't need that's just there to catch your attention. So you have a great idea there. You just box it up, and she's making a lot of money with it right now. So I'm pretty sure you can do the same.
Thanks for that feedback.
You're
Don,
welcome.
I wanted to share with you, we got some peppers, peppercorns, and it was a little cute little plastic thing. And there's 6 different kinds of peppercorns, white, green, what have you. And it came in a probably overly fancy little bag, but there's a coupon on it, and I'll be glad to send you a picture of it if you'd like. And it says, get 2 free spice refills on us. You scan a code or you visit their website, and then they give you their terms and conditions on it. But I thought it was kind of a cool way to get, a repeat on
Yeah.
this order.
Yeah, that'd be great if you could send me a screenshot. That would be awesome.
Yeah, happy to. Can you put your contact in the chat?
I sure will.
All right. Well, Dawn, if you weren't busy enough before, I think you will be now.
I like to be busy.
Yeah, you got it. Well, thank you, everybody. I'm gonna wrap this session up. Think about that, hijacking the news. Keep your eyes peeled for opportunities, even if it's a simple social media post. If you have the ability to add some kind of code so people can get whatever the offer is, by clicking through, I think most of you have that capability. But it's something that you can do pretty easily if you just take a look at Google News or Apple News or wherever you get stuff. But it may be stuff just in your area that gets a lot of attention if you feel like your market's just around you. But I thought that Apple developer thing was insane. The number of people that are associated with that program, it's probably one of the biggest populations of employment or trade, or however you want to define it, in the United States. It's hard to imagine. It's got to be bigger than auto workers or any number of other things in terms of just the sheer number of people doing it. So thank you all very much for today, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thanks.